Happy 4th of July, Independence Day, everyone. This is TV Party Tonight Extra. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And joining me tonight for our holiday watch-along to celebrate America independence, ladies and gentlemen, the punchy pugilist, totally 80s, Pat Mullin. How do you do, sir?
America.
Goddamn right. All right. Pat, I messaged you earlier and I said we need to celebrate our Independence Day the right way. And since I've already watched the actual Independence Day movie, I said, all right, the second option is to look at a match. And who's the most American wrestler you can think of? And what kind of match do you have in store for us tonight?
You know, I wanted to celebrate a real patriot, a guy who represents the best parts of what makes us American. So we're going to go with one Hacksaw Jim Duggan from Glens Falls, New York. And we're going to really look at Hacksaw in his glory from the UWF / Mid-South territory run by another fine American cowboy, Bill Watts. And his opponent is a seemingly unbeatable 6'9", 500-pound Chicago street thug named the One Man Gang.
Now, in both of these cases, I was not aware of Jim Duggan until he came to the WWF, and and he would do the 3-point stance, and he yelled out "ho!" and he had the 2x4, and he wasn't nearly as goofy in the beginning as he would become as the years moved on in the WWF. And then when he got to WCW, especially in the Vince Russo years, he was way out there silly. Same thing with the One Man Gang. I know the One Man Gang in the UWF era was a killer. And when he first came in as the One Man Gang in the WWF, I remember him being one of my favorite heel wrestlers. I just thought he had a great look. I always said that it's given my struggles with weight, that if I ever became a professional wrestler, I would probably look like the One Man Gang. I used to love this guy, and then they done goofed him up by making him Akeem the African Dream. So give people a little bit of background here on both of these individuals before the WWF done circused them up.
So in the case of the gang was an ex-prison guard who obviously is a tremendously huge man, and was told, hey, you might want to be a wrestler someday. You can make a lot of money out of it, a guy with your size. And that was before they even knew that the gang was actually a really great athlete. And we'll see in this match, gang for a guy that size can move and can bump around and animate himself like most big guys can't. He was really exceptional. And in the UWF, he, like you said, was presented as this killer, this guy that was just trouble for anybody, and really a monster, a nasty, mean heel who was going to be trouble for any babyface that came across him. Conversely, Duggan, who we're going to look at here and kind of is the feature guy for this spot, Duggan was a sanitized cartoon character in the WWF, and here in the Mid-South, where he really became Hacksaw, he was a blood and guts, fist-fighting, warrior who was not going to go down without a fight, who loved his country, and was just a romping, stomping, tough guy who wasn't going to take any crap from anybody, and really was actually a much more animated athlete in these days. In the WWF, he really kind of toned it down like most guys did, unfortunately. But I really love Hacksaw in the Mid-South. I think he was the best he ever was. And the gang gets to shine here, too. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this. I think it could be, if you only know Duggan or the gang from the WWE, I think you're in for a real treat. You're going to see a lot of stuff from these guys you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Before we play the video, I just want to ask you one question, Pat. And if you don't know the answer, that's fine. But you're sort of our historian here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, so I'd be surprised if you didn't know. But one of the first comments on the YouTube page that we plucked this from was, why didn't they ever put the UWF belt on Duggan?
I'm sure they would have if Jim wasn't so close at that point to making the jump to the WWE. And that's kind of the story, unfortunately, with a lot of guys in the UWF territory when it became the UWF. It changed its name in 1986 to go national, and when it did that, it instantly launched itself as a competitor to the WWF and Jim Crockett Promotions. And Duggan signed with the WWF, I believe, in January of '87. The UWF Heavyweight Championship came into existence May 30th, 1986. So the plan was for Duggan to be the guy chasing the belt and then eventually culminate in a win. But, Jim gave his notice when they had put the belt on the Gang, and the plan was Duggan was going to take the belt from the Gang. But unfortunately, when Jim got the call from the McMahons to come up, he kind of didn't have that opportunity at any point. Just like Ted DiBiase, who would go up, he did not have the opportunity to win that belt because he was led to the WWF. And eventually, the guy who did take the belt off of the Gang was not yet ready for the WWF, Big Bubba Rogers, who we came to best know as the Big Boss Man.
When did the Gang make the crossover to the WWF?
The Gang came over in mid-'87, so literally as UWF champion is when he signed to go there and gave his notice to Bill, and that's when they kind of quickly had him drop the title to Bubba.
Oh, poor Bill Watts. So someday we'll have to discuss Bill Watts and the UWF and the Mid-South Wrestling, but today is not that day. Today we celebrate our Independence Day by looking at a Hacksaw Jim Duggan match versus the One Man Gang in the UWF on December 20th, 1986. You can go ahead, if you want to follow along on YouTube, you can go ahead and pull that match up. It's Championship One Man Gang versus Jim Duggan, UWF, December 20th, 1986. And I'm sure Jesse will also put this up on his YouTube page with the video embedded. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, so we're going to announce our participants here. Now, who is that that's announcing? Do you know?
I don't remember that particular ring announcer's name. I'm not sure if we're at the Sam Houston Coliseum or perhaps it looks like the Sam Houston Coliseum to me.
God, almost 500 pounds the Gang is. That is amazing.
That's a big hunk of slab of meat. And with the Gang is his evil manager, that foreign oil tycoon, General Skandar Akbar.
Now, and here comes Hacksaw just romping and stomping, as you put it, down to ringside. Now, he doesn't have the 2x4 or the flag here, Pat. What gives?
At this point in time, there was a ban and a fine levied, on-screen fine levied, mind you, for anyone bringing foreign objects into play, because it got to a point where everybody was bringing something to the ring, whether it was Duggan with a 2x4, Bill Watts with a cattle prod, literal cattle prod that actually worked, Ted DiBiase with a loaded glove. So there was a ban on outside weapons.
Gotcha. And he wasn't really dragging the flag with him at this point, I would imagine.
Not necessarily a flag bearer unless it was to deal with the Russians.
Understood. All right, so we have the One Man Gang, who is your UWF champion, taking on Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And Skandar Akbar?
Yes.
He's taking a powder. He's outside. We are underway here. And the Gang's motion to him is like, come at me, bro. Let's go. Let's do this. God, I would not want to mess with the One Man Gang in a dark alley. Jesus.
What do you mean you'd be afraid of a nearly 7-foot, 500-pound man with a mohawk and tattoos on his skull?
I just might, Rabbit. I just might. Now, Jim Duggan's not good. He just walks right up to him.
And just punched him in the mouth.
That's right. Oh, and he is moving and grooving there. Now, and boom, down goes the Gang. Look at that bump.
For a big guy, Gang really was a superior athlete.
Yeah,
to be able to bump like that.
Yeah, he was right back up again. You know, if you'd have blinked, you'd have missed it. Duggan has him in the corner, and he's giving him the fist. Oh, that's some fun selling right there. He's already punch drunk, the Gang is.
And down he goes.
Oh, my goodness. Not what I would have Not what I would have expected from a guy who's going to give Hulk Hogan fits in about a year.
Yeah, but he's not in there with Hulk Hogan. He's in there with a street-fighting man from Glens Falls, New York.
This is an interestingly booked match because you've got, granted it's a heel champion, but you got your heel champion in trouble right from the get-go. He has had no offense this entire match so far. This has just been Duggan, and again, much like our Vader Mankind match, not a lot of wrestling happening. It's a lot of punches and kicking. And is he biting him?
Now some biting.
Oh, my goodness.
And Gang's trying his damnedest to get away, but he's trapped in the ropes. And this doesn't bode well for him.
No. He's about to take one in the chin. He is wrapped up tight there. Just letting it all hang out again on the ropes.
And like you were saying, this has been all Jim Duggan.
Yes, it has. And in a match like this, you would have thought, like, oh, maybe if he would have waylaid him with a chair or something, or the ring bell, and then the guy just could never get the motor going, that would have been one thing. But no, he stood face to face with him and punched him in the face, and it's been downhill ever since.
There was Bill Watts in his shoot interview said he loved Jim Duggan, he loved having him as his top guy. But if there was one criticism he could make about Duggan, it was that he had a tendency to what Watts had called guzzle opponents up. And now here it's a little bit different of a scenario, but Duggan would do this to a lot of guys he worked with, where he would just take control of the match and just whoop that ass.
Oh, jeez. It's just tossing chairs.
And Gang's hitting the table again.
Is it weird that I feel bad for the one-man gang?
Well, yeah, because he still has Skandar Akbar in his corner.
Well, Skandar's not really doing a lot for him. I mean, he's cheering him on right now, but it's not like
he's a foreign man.
He's a foreign man, sure. Okay, fine.
Mark, this is July 4th, and he's an evil foreign man.
Okay, you're right. I don't know what came over me, sir. Oh, and the gang is begging off. He's saying, please, Duggan, don't hit me again.
Putting his hands behind his back.
I am waiting for Gang to do something. There we go. There we go. He got the ref to sort of step between them, and he waylays Duggan, and now we got back and forth, fists are flying. And boom! Elbow to the top of the head, a la Dusty Rhodes, without the shucking and jiving.
And Duggan, now it's Duggan's turn to take a little bit of apparently, and that headbutt just lays it down.
Oh, yeah, I would not want to take a headbutt from the Gang. And he covers him. Oh my God, he's like some hash browns at the Waffle House. He is smothered and covered.
The Gang's head is about the size of a T-Rex's too, so I can't imagine that's comfortable in any way. And now he's choking Duggan down on the ground. It's so funny that, a year from now, or actually, December 87, yeah, a year from now, both of these guys are in Vince Land, and double right hand, double knock. And Duggan is a much more sanitized version of the same character, but the Gang is a couple months away from being the African Dream and shucking, jiving, and dancing.
Yeah, one day you and I are going to have a conversation as to what in the hell were they thinking. But I'm sure they were thinking the one man gang wasn't nearly going to sell as many toys as Hakeem the African Dream. But that's a conversation for another day. Duggan is fighting back. Oh, he takes one in the face, and we might see a wrestling move here, Pat. Oh goodness gracious!
For pile driver.
Oh my goodness! Doesn't Duggan win a Royal Rumble at some point?
Well, interestingly enough, the Royal Rumble he wins. Can you guess the final man he eliminated?
The Gang.
Yes, indeed.
And I would not be surprised if they used that spot, because I did not see the Gang going over the rope the way he just did.
They didn't, but as impressive as that was, and Duggan comes back with the clothesline.
Oh, and here comes Skandar. He's whipping him. Oh, now he's begging off. He's like, hey. Why is that not a disqualification?
Yeah, America.
Yeah, that's right. You beat him. Oh, Jesus. Who is that?
Got a run-in from Wild Bill Irwin. Also a member of Devastation Incorporated. But Duggan is undeterred. He's going to fight everybody. That's why Duggan is America.
Some would say that's a bad thing. And to those people, we say, has the ref just completely lost control over this thing? Is this still a match, or are we in Schmozland at this point?
We're entering bunkhouse land at this point, because there are just bodies piling into the ring to either break this up or get a cheap shot in it Duggan. And there's a lot of job guys in this ring right now. There are some guys who have names. You can see in the camouflage pants. That's Fidel Sierra, the Cuban Assassin. I see Jeff Gaylord in some red track pants. Duggan up on the ropes. He wants some more. He's saying, "Bring it on!"
And boom! Down with the elbow.
And I see more people coming in. I see Iceman Parsons running in from the side. And now we get real names coming into the ring. I see Dr. Death coming in to break stuff up.
Dr. Death when he was in shape and not being knocked out in a brawl for all.
Yeah, this is 11 or 12 years prior to that happening. Dr. Death still had 2 knees that work. There's a young Sting. I see Terry Taylor. Chavo Guerrero Sr.
This is... at some point I would have just rung a bell and said, fuck it, we're having a battle royal.
Duggan basically is out for blood at this point. He's telling the announcer, get up, I'm going to go handle this. And Gary Young is trying to tell everybody, hey, maniac with a chair.
Oh, he's just waylaying everybody. He don't give a hoot.
Sting is fleeing for his life. Chavo took a shot to the side of the head.
Please don't hit me. I have rafters I have to sit in for a year.
And this is fantastic.
Jim Duggan doesn't have a belt, but by golly, he's got a chair.
He's got a chair and he can stomp.
That's right.
And the crowd loved everything about this, mind you.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
A young Rick Steiner with a mustache. And Duggan's just going to take a seat.
The guy in the camo, the guy in the grayish kind of camo pants looked almost like a young Conrad.
Full tide on that. I remember when that podcast was good.
When it wasn't an hour and a half of advertisements.
Yeah, and when they actually talked about stuff I cared about.
Indeed.
And the gang's trying to get him some, and he's just eating kicks to the head from Hacksaw.
Where would they go from here, Pat? What was the next stop on the Hacksaw one-man gang tour, if there was one?
Unfortunately, this was really it for a while. It was about a month now. Duggan's working for the WWF.
Okay. So there was they never got to a blow-off because he was gone.
Yeah, unfortunately, Duggan gave his notice, and they went straight to Vince from there, and we didn't get the ending of Gang Duggan proper, although I guess we could kind of consider the ending of the first Royal Rumble maybe their final stand against each other.
Mm-hmm. Did Bill Watts have a plan as, like a cage or a... Why are you just randomly throwing chairs, sir?
Because this is July 4th, and he has the freedom to do so if he chooses. That's what makes this country great, Mark. No
doubt about it, Pat. Again, all right, so that's the end of our video. Good fun stuff. Very nice choice. A fine vintage, if you will. So, do you, just out of curiosity, do you know if they were planning a lumberjack match or a cage match? Because when you have that kind of a schmaz at the end to where there's interference and people getting in there, I think logically that would be where you would go next. And I'm curious, was that on the books and then he left, or who knows?
Cage matches were really seldom used in the UWF. There were some, but it wasn't common. Lumberjack matches were a fair staple of Bill Watts' booking, so I can't not think that they weren't coming back to Houston with a lumberjack match as the next choice. And potentially from there, maybe if that wasn't when they were going to anoint Jim Duggan, maybe a cage match after that. But there's no, surefire laid out plan that's ever been discussed openly, other than they were going to have Duggan be the guy that they eventually made their champion once they decided to take the belt, off of Gang. And Bill just had bad luck with top baby faces leaving him at critical times, because he had it happen to him with the Junkyard Dog, he had it happen to him with Duggan, and he had it happen to him after this with Ted DiBiase. Yeah,
Bill Watts needed a Ted Turner to be in his corner to, offer some benefits to these guys to keep them around. And it's a shame. I would have, thinking back to and granted, I grew up, in the Northeast with the WWF, but I think, had the UWF had more of a presence and had reached me, I think I would have enjoyed it back then. Who knows?
Well, you look at the guys who came out of there. It's all guys who we loved somewhere else later. It's Duggan, it's the Dog, it's DiBiase, the Gang, the Freebirds, Jake Roberts,
Dog.
Like all these tremendous stars, really, that Bill created, and if he didn't necessarily create them, he really groomed them to be who they became.
Mm-hmm. I remember I was a big fan for the brief moment in time that he was in the WWF of Natural Butch Reed, and I wish whatever the hell happened to him in the WWF, I wish things had worked out because I loved his look, even with the crazy yellow hair and everything else. But that's
another Bill Watts guy.
Yep, exactly. That's why I brought him up. All right, Pat. This has been fun. This is a great way to cap off a July 4th here in 2018 in America. What do you got going on? When's your first? All I've seen is old guys, old games. When is your first Casual Heroes podcast coming along?
So the likelihood is Gavin and I are going to be doing a boxing show based around the current tournament that HBO has going on via their Twitter account, where they're matching up, in their opinion, the 32 greatest fighters to ever fight on HBO. And they're down to their final 8 participants going at it. So when
what weight class is this?
It's a thing where they're kind of taking everybody and cherry picking from history, everybody who's fought on HBO, and they take who they deem are the 32 best to decide who was the greatest fighter ever on HBO.
Gotcha.
So they're down to their Elite 8, and after the dust settles and we get their final, we'll do a show discussing what we agree with, what we disagree with, where some of the things we think should have been done differently were, and why we each come to our result as to who we believe was the best ever on HBO.
All right. And you, of course, are one of the participants in the 401 Ground and Pound show. Why don't you give people a quick plug on that?
I am. You can hear every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, or we record it every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's shared through 411mania.com/MMA. It's shared through the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. It's shared through Robert Winfrey on social media. That's at WinfreyMMA on Twitter. Not spelled like Oprah, WINFREE. Like the free, as in land of the free, which we celebrate today. Also, I just recorded a special kind of extension of source material with Jesse Starcher last night, where we took a walkthrough of the very limited release Sega CD version of Prime, the Malibu Comics superhero. We talk a little bit about the Ultraverse, as it was called. We talk about the game itself and walk through, and there's a video attached along with it. And a good time is had by all. And there's a little bonus tag at the end where we bash LJN games and take a look at a wrestling game produced by LJN called Super WrestleMania for Sega Genesis.
All right, folks. Thank you, Pat. We'll do another one of these very soon, as I do enjoy them. Ladies and gentlemen, it's July 4th, as I said, and in a little while, Jesse Starcher and I are going to review last year's Kid Rock release, Sweet Southern Sugar, because there's no more American than Kid Rock. He is the American badass, and this is July 4th, so we're going to review one of his most recent albums right here on the Metal Hammer of Doom. Look for that very soon. It'll drop late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Until then, thank you, Pat. For everyone else, be well, be safe, and behave.